Did you know that there is a shark that walks, another that glows in the dark, and one that literally removes a perfect cylinder of flesh from its prey like a cookie cutter? Stay until the end, because the last one on the list will blow your mind. Great white shark. Let's start with the classic, the great white shark, the most iconic apex predator on the planet. And look, that reputation is not exaggerated. It reaches 6 meters in length and 2,000 kilograms. But what really sets it apart from almost everyone in the ocean is that it is partially endothermic. That is, it keeps its body warmer than the surrounding water. It's as if it walks around with central heating turned on. This gives an absurd muscular advantage in cold waters. It has 300 teeth in several rows, lost one. The next one already takes its place, and its sense of smell can detect blood in the water at enormous distances. It reaches 40 km/h and is capable of completely leaving the water in a behavior called breaching. Imagine a ton of shark flying. That is exactly it. It lives for decades. Estimates point to up to 70 years of life. This animal that scared you in childhood can be older than your grandfather. Hey, stop for a second here. If you are enjoying this content, leave a like now. Look, the YouTube algorithm is picky, and the like helps the channel grow a lot. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe, because we have a lot of absurd content like this coming. All right? Now let's continue. Shortfin mako shark. Now forget the white for a second. Want to meet the fastest shark in the world? The shortfin mako. 74 km/h. 74. With a bright metallic blue body that literally looks like a torpedo. Its teeth are long, curved, and stick out even with the mouth closed, like claws that it doesn't even need to hide. It can jump up to 6 meters out of the water. It is one of the most dramatic spectacles of the open ocean. The problem is precisely this spectacular speed and tasty meat made it the favorite target of sport and commercial fishing. Then the IUCN classified the mako as an endangered species in 2019, and populations continue to decline. An animal like this, and we are losing it due to neglect. Blue shark. The blue shark is probably the most abundant shark in the open ocean. Indigo blue, deep on the back, white belly, long and thin fins like wings. It looks too elegant to be a shark, and maybe that is exactly why it suffers so much. It is curious, relatively calm with humans, which makes it an easy victim of the practice of finning, where fishermen cut the fins and throw the body back into the sea to die. It is estimated that tens of millions of blue sharks die every year. Its abundance should not be confused with invulnerability. This is a warning. Oceanic white-tip shark. This one has a very specific reputation, since Jacques Cousteau called the oceanic white-tip shark the most dangerous shark in the ocean. And it was not because of impulsive attack, it was because of persistence. Once it detects a potential food source, it does not let go. It does not get distracted. It does not flee. It does not lose interest. This characteristic links it to one of the darkest episodes in naval history, the sinking of the USS Indianapolis in 1945, when hundreds of sailors were adrift for days in the Pacific. It reaches 4 mem, swims with a deliberate slowness that is more frightening than any speed. Silky shark. The silky shark owes its name to something you do not see in the photo, but you would feel if you ran your hand over it. Its scales are smaller and finer than those of most species, giving a surprisingly smooth texture. It is a pelagic shark of up to 3.5 meters that forms large groups around schools of tuna. And there is the problem. Tuna fleets and industrial fisheries catch it in absurd quantities as bycatch, accidental capture. Its historical abundance made it invisible to fishing regulations for decades, just like the blue. Too common for anyone to care until it is too late. Bull shark. Now comes the one that many experts consider the statistically most dangerous shark for humans. It is not the white, it is the bull shark. Why? Because it does something that no other large shark can do in a sustained way. Live in fresh water. It has an osmoregulation system in the kidneys that adjusts the salt concentration in the body according to the environment. It has already been documented in the Amazon River, in Lake Nicaragua, and in the Mississippi River. Stocky body, short and blunt snout, up to 3.4 and 415 kilos. And it is not the most dangerous because it is more aggressive. It is because it inhabits exactly where people swim. shallow, murky coastal waters. Several attacks attributed to other species throughout history were probably its doing due to misidentification. Blacktip reef shark, probably the most photographed shark in the world. The tips of all its fins are marked with an intense and defined black. It looks like they were dipped in paint over a slender, silvery grey body. It lives between 0 and 30 mm deep in coral reefs, and its presence is so constant that divers treat it like a neighborhood neighbor. Sometimes the fins cut the surface visible from the beach. That is it, white-tip reef shark. This one breaks all shark stereotypes. During the day, instead of actively patrolling, it rests in caves and reef crevices. Sometimes it is piled together with other individuals in a stillness that confuses anyone. At night, it becomes an active hunter, capable of inserting its flexible body into incredibly narrow spaces inside the coral. It is the first documented species doing something like group rest. Proportionally large eyes adapted to hunting in the darkness of the nocturnal reef, up to 2.1 mm in length. Grey reef shark. This one has a very particular way of warning when it does not want company. Before attacking, it performs what researchers call a threat display, arches its body in an exaggerated way, raises its snout, lowers its pectoral fins, and begins to swim with an unusual undulating movement. It is a clear warning. If you ignore it, the attack comes. It is one of the most studied behaviors in the entire shark family, because such standardized warning communication that becomes predictable is rare. Nurse shark. That image of a shark that everyone has in their head? The nurse shark will deconstruct all of that, slow, benthic, and generally harmless. During the day, it stays completely motionless on the bottom, sometimes gathered with others, in a rest that disorients anyone who only knows movie sharks. It has two fleshy barbels under the snout that it uses to detect prey buried in the sediment and can breathe without moving. Nocturnal, it feeds on octopuses, crabs, and bottom fish. It reaches 4.3 meter and is popular in aquariums for being very docile. Whale shark. The largest fish in the world, between 12 and 18 m, more than 20 tons and completely harmless to humans. The whale shark filters plankton, krill, and small fish, passing thousands of liters of water through its enormous mouth while it swims gently at the surface. The pattern of white spots of each individual is unique, like a fingerprint. Researchers use photos to identify them. Despite the size, it is classified as an endangered species by the IUCN, threatened by boat collisions and illegal fishing. Basking shark, the second largest fish in the world, and one of the most dramatic images of the ocean. It swims with its mouth completely open for hours, showing gills so large that they almost surround the entire head like deep slits. It reaches between 10 and 12 mm, also a filter feeder, but operates in colder waters of the North Atlantic. For years they thought it hibernated on the bottom in winter, but more recent studies with satellite telemetry complicated this theory. Their migratory behaviors are much more complex than imagined. Megamouth shark. This one is special. The megamouth shark is so rare that its very existence was a scientific surprise. The first known specimen was discovered in 1976 when it got accidentally caught in the anchor of a U.S. Navy ship near Hawaii. Before that, no one knew this animal existed. Since then, confirmed sightings do not reach 150. Most are accidental captures or low-quality videos. It reaches 5.5 m, has a huge and rounded head with a massive terminal mouth. It is believed that the interior of the mouth has bioluminescent tissue that may attract the plankton it feeds on. A hypothesis still under investigation. Every night it rises from the depths to the surface, following the vertical migrations of plankton, and returns before dawn. Carpet shark wobbegong. This one solved the problem of hunting in the most efficient way possible, disappearing. The body completely flattened, covered with an intricate pattern of browns, creams, and whites, with dermal fringes on the edges that mimic algae and sponges of the bottom. It becomes literally invisible against the reef. It can be 30 centimeters from an experienced diver without being detected. It waits motionless for hours and then attacks with explosive speed, completely unexpected for something that looked like a decorative rock. It is not large, about 1.8 mm in the largest species, but in efficiency as a hunter, a category of its own. Epaulette shark. And here we reach what I promised at the beginning. The shark that walks. The epaulette shark uses its pectoral and pelvic fins as rudimentary limbs to move over the reef bottom and even briefly leave the water to cross from one tide pool to another during low tide. It is small, just over 1 mm, with a pattern of dark spots and a large black spot, with a white border behind each pectoral fin that mimics a huge eye to confuse predators. It has absurd physiological resistance. It can survive in extremely low oxygen conditions that would kill most vertebrates. It is one of the most studied species by researchers interested in the evolution of terrestrial locomotion in vertebrates. Yes, to understand how animals learn to walk, they study this shark, Pacific angel shark. It looks like a ray, but it is not. The Pacific angel shark has expanded fins in a wing silhouette, but unlike rays, they are not fused. The head buries itself in the sand with only the eyes out, waiting to ambush fish and crustaceans. Completely flattened up to 1.5, with the eyes on top of the head, looking straight up to detect silhouettes against the light. Efficient strategy, but that makes it vulnerable to trawl fishing, which devastated its populations on the Pacific coasts. Bamboo shark. This one made scientific headlines for an unexpected reason: parthenogenesis. Females kept separated from males for years produced fertile eggs that hatched into fully functional offspring, documented in aquariums in several countries. That is, under certain conditions, females can reproduce without any male. It reaches 1.2 meter, popular in aquariums due to its size and calm temperament. The exact mechanisms behind parthenogenesis are still the subject of active research. Goblin shark, one of the strangest-looking animals in the oceans, and most people who have seen it dead or dying after accidental capture in deep waters. It lives at more than 200 mm depth in almost total darkness, pale pink color, almost translucent, due to blood vessels visible under the skin, long and flat snout like a spatula, and jaws that project out of the face in milliseconds to capture prey, unique among living sharks. It reaches 3.8 meters and is the only living member of its family. An evolutionary lineage with more than 125 million years in the oceans. Each new specimen captured brings information that simply did not exist before. Black belly lantern shark, 22 cm. It is one of the smallest sharks in the world and produces its own light. The belly is covered with photophores, specialized organs that generate a bluish-green bioluminescence that the animal actively controls. It is believed that this light does several things at the same time. Camouflage, the silhouette against the light coming from above. It can serve for communication with others of the species and possibly attract small prey. It lives in the mesopelagic zone, between 200 and 1,000 meter depth, where sunlight barely reaches. Seeing it in the darkness of the deep ocean, emitting its own cold glow, is one of the most unusual spectacles of marine life. Cookie-cutter shark, 50 cm, but it has left marks on whales, dolphins, seals, submarine military cables, and at least one human swimmer. The attack surgical precision. It attaches to the prey with thick lips that function as a suction cup. It spins on its own axis and extracts a perfect cylinder of flesh with specialized teeth, leaving a circular wound that looks made with a cutter. For decades, researchers were puzzled by these mysterious wounds without knowing what caused them. It makes vertical migrations of hundreds of meters every night, rises from the depths to feed, and returns before dawn. Small in size, absolutely extraordinary in method. Greenland shark. The vertebrate with the greatest known longevity on the planet. A specimen studied in 2016, published in the journal Science, was dated by radiocarbon in the lens of the eye at approximately 392 years, with a margin of error of 120 years. This means that this shark may have been born before Galileo published his first astronomical observations. It grows about 1 centimeters per year. It swims with an almost imperceptible slowness in Arctic waters. In adulthood, it becomes practically blind because parasites attach to the cornea and eat the eye tissue. It compensates with smell and other senses. The meat is toxic in the fresh state, but fermented for months becomes the traditional Icelandic dish known as hakal. Hammerhead shark. The head of the hammerhead shark looks like a design mistake, until you understand what that flat and transverse extension is for. The cephalofoil distributes the ampullae of Lorenzini, the electroreceptors, over a much larger surface than that of any other shark. The result is that it can locate a ray buried under centimeters of sand with millimetric precision. There are 9 species of hammerhead shark. The great hammerhead reaches 6 meters and is critically endangered. One of the most impressive images of the ocean is their migratory school. Hundreds of individuals forming a slow spiral in deep ocean blue. Perfectly recognizable silhouettes from any angle. Saw shark. The snout of the saw shark looks like a weapon because basically it is. This flat extension called rostrum is bordered by lateral teeth like spikes, and the shark uses it to strike sideways schools of fish at high speed, stunning or killing several prey with a single movement before eating them. Under the snout, it has 2 sensory barbels that it uses to detect prey buried in the sediment. It reaches 1.37 meters and lives on coastal bottoms. Do not confuse it with the sawfish, which is actually a ray and is critically endangered. They are 2 completely different animals that evolutionarily arrived at the same solution. Sand tiger shark. We left for the penultimate, the most violent beginning of life documented among vertebrates. Inside the mother's uterus, the embryos devour each other. The first to develop consume the available unfertilized eggs, and then attack and devour the less developed siblings in the process called oophagy, or intrauterine cannibalism. Only the strongest survive to be born, and when they are born they already measure approximately 1.05 meter. Offspring that come into the world already formidable after a gestation of about 12 months. The mother can reach 3.2 meter. Brutal as it seems, this system produces robust offspring ready from the first second of independent life. Pacific sleeper shark shares with the Greenland shark the strategy of extreme slowness, massive body, almost imperceptible movements, metabolism at a minimum, up to 4.4 meters in deep waters of the North Pacific, with parasites that deteriorate vision over time. What intrigues researchers is what appears in its stomach: entire seals. How does such a slow shark hunt a seal? The most accepted hypothesis, not yet definitively confirmed. It hunts mammals while they sleep, approaching in absolute silence in the cold darkness until it is too late. That is where the name comes from. It is an important species in the culture of the indigenous peoples of Alaska, who know it and have known it for generations, before Western science even formally described it. 25 sharks and each one more absurd than the previous. If you made it this far, leave a like. Seriously, people are not leaving it, and that helps the channel a lot to continue bringing this type of content.